Are you interested in using video to train people on some skill that you already have, but maybe they're missing? I'm glad you joined us today. I've got Michael Poley from Team Treehouse. He's a video producer here, and Team Treehouse is about training people how to do very highly technical skills and computer languages and whatnot. But video is a great way to train just about anything. So thank you for joining, and we'll have Michael in 1 second. Well, welcome, Subscriber Nation. I've got a great interview for you today. I've got Michael with Treehouse, and we're going to jump right in. Michael, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Sure. So my name is Michael Poley. I'm in Portland, Oregon right now. So I don't have a degree in film. I have an English degree, but I got into film and video doing sketch comedy with my friends, like a lot of people probably. And then I started doing some green screen comedy. Like for whatever reason, we were shooting a lot of green screen videos, and so I ended up getting a job with a social networking website for realtors that had walk-on videos with realtors. It's super obscure, but anyway, that when the real estate market crashed, that spun off into its own company, and so I just started shooting these walk-on spokespersons, with doing some Flash programming. And so at the same time, I was shooting a weekly web show where I would go to different events in Orlando. I was trying to do it weekly. It wasn't always weekly, but I ended up meeting a lot of people doing that. Turned out that my green screen stuff was really much better than I thought it was, and I got various gigs through that. But I ended up getting a gig doing a walk-on video programming lesson for a company called. Then it was just Envy Labs, but it's Code School. So I did this Rails for Zombies course. It's kind of a famous Ruby programming course.
Okay.
Where Greg Pollock, who's the owner of the company, he comes on, walks onto the screen, points out the code, and it's got great silly theming. So I was doing that, and then I got involved with Treehouse, which was then Think Find a Membership. So I've been doing Treehouse video for 4 years.
Okay, great. Well, why don't you tell us a little bit about what Treehouse is, because you're doing video for them, but video is a big chunk of the business.
Sure. So Treehouse is an online school that teaches web design, web development, so specifically designed for beginners. So you could go from zero to job ready. Of course, there's also stuff that's built in for lifelong learning, lifelong assessment, but essentially zero to job ready in web design development.
Wonderful. Yeah. Great. So maybe you can tell us the why of why Treehouse uses video, why it's an online video class.
Sure. So I never went to school for computer science, so I'm relying on the experience of the experts that I work with. But when you're going to school for computer science, what I understand, it's really challenging when you come out of that program. I don't know what your experience was with college or if you went, but I had an English degree. When I came out, I was definitely not prepared to get a job. I got a job in publishing for a couple of years, but obviously the market on printed materials is doesn't exist anymore. But in any event, so when you come out with a computer science program, your skills not necessarily up to date. And so you have to have more current skills. So you end up learning a lot of stuff on your own. So most computer people end up being autodidacts that can teach themselves on a given subject. So naturally, that means you're going to the internet to find out information, or you're getting books. And for software, specifically for computer software and for programming skills, video just works exceptionally well. Mm-hmm. The alternative now, of course, is boot camps. You could go to a boot camp and learn something, but can be incredibly expensive. I mean, going to a coding boot camp could be $15,000 in 16 weeks of your life. Video, on the other hand, can give you some of those same experiences. I mean, not the exact same experience, but some of the same experiences, same coding information, but on your own timeline. Mm-hmm. So, and video works exceptionally well. I mean, you're using a computer, watching somebody. In most cases, it's a lot of screencasting. Watching somebody code a website on a computer that you can then use to code the website. You don't need any materials beyond the materials required for beyond the computer, which is great. Unlike a lot of other hobbies and professions and stuff. Yeah, or like filmmaking. You can take the video lesson, and you also need a camera and a recorder and all that stuff.
Yeah, great. Well, why don't we jump in and you tell us a time that you learned from a mistake?
Sure. So learned a lot of different things at Treehouse, but one thing that we learned a lot about early on is about abstractions. So specifically when you're teaching, teaching anything, you don't want to abstract too much away from the concept that you're actually teaching. So for us, initially we wanted to do all these really cool special effects. So we started with a magical table. I mean, there was also more theming involved, but a magical table where code would come out of the table and the teacher could talk about the code. Mm-hmm. Now, if you're a super beginner and just getting started, you may think that you need a magical table to code a website. And that sounds so stupid. It's like, obviously you're going to use a computer. You're using a computer to learn this lesson. But just that level of abstraction can make code seem a little bit more intimidating and confusing than it is. So now, I mean, it's so simple, but we don't do any of those kinds of effects. We don't have things magically appearing. We'll have a laptop, next to the instructor, so it's super clear that you need a laptop to do this, and the instructor may even turn to the laptop when we get into the screencasting. That's been super helpful.
Great. Well, let's just move into a piece of equipment that you can't live without, which I think might be related.
Yeah. So we do a ton of screencasting. So early on, doing a ton of stuff with software recorders. So that would be iShowU HD, the ScreenFlow, all this kinds of software that you can use to record screens. But the problem with that software is like stuff can get corrupted. There's this weird compression time that can happen. So you can't. It's not just you hit start and hit stop and you're done. So what we've discovered is that we transitioned to hardware recorders after doing it for like a year and a half, but hardware recorders have been awesome. So it really allows us to have these very simple setups where an instructor can come in, press the record button when they're ready to record, and hit stop. The quality's great, and it's ready to go. Like it can be recorded right into ProRes and dropped right into a Final Cut Pro timeline or a Premiere Pro sequence. I mean, it's awesome.
Great.
So hardware recorders. Also, we take the physical computer and move it outside of our screencasting booth so it doesn't make noise. Anyway, that's side point.
Interesting.
Related to that.
Great. Well, let's dig into money. How does this work? And so this is, it's people are paying for these classes.
Sure.
But why don't you talk about that just briefly?
So we people pay either $25 or $50 a month to become students at Treehouse. We have right now around 100,000 students, so that's how we operate. So we have facilities in Orlando and Portland, and we're just constantly producing content for those students.
So how big of a business is Treehouse?
So right now it's like 75 employees or so between Orlando, Portland, and then working remotely. I'd say half the company works remotely. But coming up for us, the real challenge is to continue to grow content and grow this content machine or the content engine. So that's what's coming up in the next year. Like right now, I'd say we have 35 of that 75 people are totally focused on developing content for Treehouse, and we need to make more of it. So we're producing somewhere around 14 courses per month, plus workshops, plus conferences, plus the Treehouse show. And so our courses are between 1 and 6 hours. The Treehouse show is 12 minutes. The workshops are an hour. Conferences are it could be 36 hours. Anyway, so we're producing a ton of content, but we need to be even more on top of it. We need to, hopefully by next year, double our content output. Mm-hmm. So that's the current challenge is how do we grow what we're producing efficiently and also make sure it's the things that our students are interested in getting.
Yeah. Yeah, and we were talking before we started filming about the turnover in this content is, turnover or computer training that's 2 years old is,
Right, it's out of date.
Yeah, so it's removed from the website, so you have to continuously produce content.
Right. No, I was trying to show an example to you about some of our older content to show you how it's changed, and it's not even on the site anymore, which is awesome. But it just shows how quickly I wasn't even aware that it had been removed.
Yeah. So great. Well, you've kind of covered a little bit about what's next, but maybe you could just let us know. I mean, we're sitting here in this space. What's next for this space here, Treehouse in Portland, Oregon?
So we moved into this space last year, and it was about 5-6 people here, and now it's going to be into the new year 30 people. So this is actually a pretty small space. It's not great for shooting anyway. So we're going to be taking the shooting part of our operation and moving it to another space in Northwest Portland, and then this will all be offices. Mm-hmm. So that's the plan, and then we'll be moving into a larger space, which is being built now over off Williams next year. So that'll be awesome, and that'll be hopefully we'll be 3 studios there at least, so that we can have constant production and really be on our game.
Awesome. Very good. Well, why don't you tell Subscriber Nation how they can find you and how they can find Treehouse. But I really want to know how we can find those early sketch comedy days.
Oh, geez. Yeah, so the sketch comedy days. Yeah, so that's Night of the Night Wolf was the sketch comedy group I worked with. But I do stupid videos all the time on my YouTube channel,
cool.
Which I'll tweet about. So Twitter-wise, it's at Michael Poley. I have my own personal website, michaelpoley.com, but I don't know what I'm doing with it. But it is physically there. And then for Treehouse, it's teamtreehouse.com, at Treehouse on Twitter, and we're super active on YouTube and Twitter. So that's the Treehouse part. And if you're, thinking about becoming a web designer or developer, or you know someone who's been successful at it and you're curious how you'd get into it, like it is the best place to get started.
Wonderful. Well, thank you so much, Michael. This was a great interview. I love the Treehouse space here. Thanks for opening it up on a Friday for us. Yes,
No one's here.
Yes, no one's here. It's very quiet in the Treehouse space today. With Subscriber Nation, we will see you next week. Well, thanks for watching. I would really love to build a Udemy course that's on my to-do list for 2015. And I hope that you guys are interested in producing courses, and definitely want you to continue watching Subscriber Nation. We've got lots of great content. Just be sure to hit the subscribe button, and we will see you next week.